Okay, good evening, church family. I hope that we're all doing well, continuing to stay safe. I have with me my brother, Landon, who preaches over at the Spring Valley Church of Christ outside of Searcy, Arkansas area. He's going to be joining us tonight for our devotional talks. I hope that it's been good for you to be back at worship. I know it's been good for me. I've had lots of people talking about how it's good for them. I do hope that you do find some blessing and encouragement from being there on Sunday mornings. I know there's lots of talk about us and other churches getting back to a full-time schedule, Sunday morning, Sunday night, Wednesday evenings. Lots of churches are talking about that, especially right now in this time. And so I wanted to make us all aware that we're going to take some time out of the next couple of weeks, this upcoming Sunday and the next Sunday at the beginning of the Bible class study session to kind of discuss that aspect, what it would be like getting back to full-time worship, what that would require of us, what we would need to do to make sure that goes smoothly and effectively. So just be aware that we are going to be talking about that. Do be prepared to hopefully have some good thoughts. We had lots of good thoughts at our last town hall discussion regarding getting back to worship. So just make sure that you're thinking about and praying about that as other churches around our nation begin to discuss that as well. I don't think personally that we'll be changing our schedule anytime soon, especially given that there are a lot of new COVID-19 cases beginning to spike up, especially down south in our area. It seems like it's moved further down here, so I don't think we'll be making any changes anytime soon, but it is a discussion that people want to have, and so we are going to at least bring it up and discuss the possibilities, what all that would entail. So do be thinking and praying about that for the next couple of Sundays as we figure this out together. So for our devotional tonight, we're going to be looking at 2 Corinthians chapter 4, verse 16, which is good because it kind of ties into the whole situation that we're dealing with, that we have going on. 2 Corinthians 4:16, Paul tells us, "Therefore we do not lose heart. Although outwardly we are wasting away, inwardly we are being renewed day by day." And we know, of course, that with all that's going on, it is very easy for us to lose heart. Take a look around the world. There's so much going on. Our world is in a state of unrest. There is a worldwide pandemic. We're unable to do the things that we like to do. And the cases are beginning to rise again. Just when it seemed like we might be reaching a point where we could get somewhat out of the woods, it seems like we've been pulled right back in. And so I don't need to remind anybody that our situation is not ideal in the world right now, and it can be easy to lose heart and become depressed and get discouraged because of it. I know for certain I deal with lots of those things on a daily basis, but just like we talked about last week where Jesus said, "Do not lose heart," I hope that we don't, that we remember that, and that we can follow up this week where Paul says, "Do not lose heart" as well. Because even though our outward circumstances aren't ideal, as Christians, Paul says we are being renewed day by day.
Yeah, and this kind of reminds me about what I preached about last Sunday, which was do not worry. That was kind of the message that I brought to the congregation. And especially, like Garrett said, considering everything that's going on, it's very easy to get wrapped up in, the media and things that you see going around and people being scared of everything that's going on in the world. And it's easy to kind of get wrapped up in that and think, oh no, things are going terribly, and to focus on everything that's happening here. But just like I talked about on Sunday, do not worry. God is in control, and that's kind of reinforced here in this verse. Do not lose heart, even though the outward is perishing, the inward is being renewed. And he continues here in verse 17, "For our light affliction, which is but for a moment, is working for us a far more exceeding and eternal weight of glory. While we do not look at the things which are seen, but at things which are not seen. For the things which are seen are temporary, but the things which are not seen are eternal." So, like he says there, reinforcing the concept that things which are seen here, they're temporary. They're not going to last forever. Our life here, no matter how bad it might get, is not going to last forever. But our goal, our eternal goal, which is to live with God for eternity someday in heaven, that is eternal. That's what we're going toward. But that's something that we can't see, and that's why it's so difficult to kind of wrap our mind around, because we can't see it, we can't touch it, we can't feel it. It's not in our realm of our senses. But everything else that's going on is. And so it's difficult in that aspect to kind of get over the worries of this life.
It's one of those things that's a lot easier said than done. Paul describes what we have going on as light and momentary, and that's pretty difficult for us to justify as we deal with different things throughout our life. They don't feel light, they don't feel momentary, they feel heavy, and they feel continuous. But again, that's from our worldly perspective, where we understand the physical things. It's all we know, it's all we have to go off of. But Paul says that, not even just our situation, but even later on in the Bible, it's described our life is light and momentary compared to eternity. And so whatever we deal with in this life, it's nothing compared to what comes next. It's outmatched, it's outweighed by the glory that comes from being with the Father. And so Paul says, we don't fix our eyes on what we can see, what we know, because that's all going away. No matter how much time you put into it, no matter how much effort you put into it, no matter how much money you invest into the stuff here, it's all going away eventually. But Paul says what is unseen, that's eternal, that's forever. And I know it's difficult for us to wrap our mind around and really focus on, but that's where our focus ought to be.
So going back earlier to verse 16, where it talks about the inward man being renewed day by day, what do you kind of think that means? What do you get from that?
Let's see. Let me scroll back here. Read it again. Therefore we do not lose heart. Though outwardly we are wasting away, inwardly we are being renewed day by day. I think, of course, with all language in the Bible, it's very specifically chosen. And so the day-by-day aspect kind of hints at something that's pretty commonly accepted. When you're going through ordeals in life, you take it one step at a time, one day at a time. And so Paul is kind of reinforcing that inwardly as Christians, we are renewed day by day. We have to take proactive steps to renew ourselves. You can't just sit back and do the same unproductive things all day, day after day, and expect to see different results. You've got to put forth some effort. You've got to engage study of the Bible. You've got to engage with fellow Christians and study and gain encouragement and benefit from each other. That's what we as Christians do. That's why we're a family, a community. And so Paul says here, we are renewed day by day by our Christian status. That focus, that faith, the hope and peace and comfort and study that comes from being a child of God, that's what gives us that renewed comfort day by day. It's not something we can just do, say, on Sunday and then expect to coast through the rest of the week off those fumes. It's got to be continuous. It's got to be a day-by-day thing. Sunday, we get a good boost because we're there at church studying and worshiping. And then Monday, we've got to do the same thing again on our own or with other Christians we can get together with. Same thing on Tuesday, same thing on Wednesday. Here we are. Thursday, Friday, Saturday. It's a day-by-day thing. Again, you can't just do it on Sunday and expect to last to the next Sunday off those fumes. It is a continuous thing. And so that's what I think Paul gets at there by saying we are renewed day by day. Is that kind of what you thought, or do you have some different thoughts?
Yeah, no, I agree with that. And just to kind of maybe push that a little bit forward, and like you said, taking action is definitely part of it. It's not just a passive thing where we expect God to do everything. But where my mind kind of took it was we have to continue to build our relationship with God. And that's something that I think some people may not put enough effort into. I know I'm guilty of that for sure. But being able to build this relationship with God and to actually desire Him and to read His Word and to pray and talk to Him frequently to a point where you feel like you have this relationship with God because He wants a relationship with you. And I think that the further we push our relationship with God, the more and more we strive to have this relationship with God, the more we can be renewed and God can work through us. So it's a two-way street. we desire for God to work in us, and He will. But if we don't want God to work in us, and we don't read our Bible, and we don't study, and we kind of let that relationship slide, then maybe we won't be renewed day by day. This is definitely an active thing, I think. Sure.
Yeah, I think that's why Paul often compares Christianity to a sport, because it's not some passive thing you can kind of sit back and coast on. It's not showing up, sitting in a pew, clocking in, clocking out, heading back, and that's it. It is very active. What you say, what you do, what you decide to watch, who you decide to interact with. It's a constant thing. Again, day by day. It's not something that you can do, show up on Sunday again, clock in, clock out, and let that be it for your week. It's something that goes on all the time. And I want to kind of bring it to another point there, continuing, something that we as Christians and the rest of the world have in common. We might have lots of differences, but one thing we do have in common is that life is hard. Life is stressful. It can be discouraging. It can be demoralizing. But again, what separates us from the rest of the world is that we have that hope and peace and comfort that comes from being in Christ Jesus.
Yeah, going off of that point, you talk about how people in the world say, where is God? If God is real, show me the proof. Well, I think that's kind of what the Christian's job is, It's like so many people say, where's God? I see no proof of God. Well, not only is, a lot of people won't buy that just looking at creation proves that there's a God because, they believe in the Big Bang or whatever. But there's something about Christians that people should, like you said, see Christians and see that they don't live like most people. It's Jesus living in us, and it's the light that we're supposed to show to others that is the proof, the proof of God. Us walking around and having a different worldview and not living the way the world does. They're supposed to see us differently. And like you said, that's kind of the beginning step for people to say, hey, you're living differently. What's that all about? And it's like, oh, well, I'm living for God. And then you get people invested in that way. And so I definitely think being active in the world, I mentioned a few weeks ago in one of my lessons, culture making, how we as Christians are supposed to be involved in culture and participating in culture and adding something to culture. A lot of people, a lot of Christians, might pray, God, just take me out of this world, or come on back, we're ready for you. But I think Christians have an obligation to actively participate in culture and to add something to this world to show, hey, we're all trying to get to this. We as Christians are trying to get to heaven, and God wants as many people there as possible. And so it's kind of our job to go out into the world and to make a difference and to be the light for others in this world. So,
as Jesus said, go out, preach the gospel to every creature. I don't want to keep bringing it back to what we talked about on Sunday, but this is very similar to what we both talked about on Sunday, and even us in our discussion past Wednesday night. But yeah, it's like Philip said there in John 14. He said to Jesus, well, show us the Father. That'll be enough. That'll be enough proof for us, even though they had Jesus right there in front of him. And Jesus said, Philip, I've been with you all this time. If you've seen me, then you've seen the Father. And again, we say it in a different context than Jesus said it, because obviously we are not the Son of God. But when Christians see, or when the world sees us as Christians, they should see God. Again, we don't do the things we do to glorify ourselves or boast ourselves up or any of that. But it's also that God can be seen through us. We are His extensions. We represent Him here on earth. And so as His representatives, we should be showing people that light and love and peace when all they see around us is darkness. It is difficult to try and get through the world, to get through each day, but as Christians, we're called to be something greater. I don't think just kind of coasting through, trying to keep our head down. I don't think that's really going to cut it. We got to be involved in showing people the light of God, because they can't really see it if we're taking a back seat and trying to avoid all that the world has going on, when we could be making a difference in it.
Yeah, it's easy to say, man, this world is terrible, but it's harder to get out there and do something about it. because I feel like if more Christians actually, took that next step and actually went out into the world and tried to do something about it, make it change, myself included, then this world would definitely be a better place for it, for sure.
Absolutely. Well, are there any other thoughts we have on 2 Corinthians or anything else you want to add from what you've talked about in your sermons the past few Sundays?
I think I covered it. I think that's it.
All right. Well, thanks for coming over.
Yeah.
It's been a lot of fun.
Thanks for having me.
Of course. I want to thank you all again for your time and attention. I know these Wednesday night online devotionals aren't ideal, but we're doing the best we can with what we've got. Again, we'll be discussing going back full time. Given all that's going on right now, again, I don't think now is the best time for that. But we are going to bring up the pros, the cons, what we can do to maybe make our situation a little bit better. So do be thinking and praying about that for this upcoming Sunday morning. Thanks again to my brother Landon for coming out. I do hope that this was beneficial and encouraging for you. Be safe, be blessed, go out, bless others, and I guess I will see you all on Sunday morning.